Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the first episode of Unlimited, where we dive into juicy conversations designed to expand your mind and broaden your horizon. My name is Kutrano Maine, but you guys can call me PK, and I am your host. Today's episode is all about the importance of introspection, the act of looking within, which assists us to be up to date with who we are and where we are in terms of the goals we have for ourselves in life. But in addition to that, it assists us to achieve personal growth, emotional healing, and spiritual evolution. So without a waste of time, get yourself a drink, get comfy, and let us dive in. I believe that before we can go anywhere with this conversation, what is important is understanding what introspection is, right? And listen, especially in this club, or rather, especially with us, this community that we're building where we are unlimited, I believe that every single person has somewhat their own definition of what each word means to them, right? So in a nutshell, most people would say introspection is basically a way of revisiting events that took place in your day, or rather processing certain events that took place in your life or in your day, and it ends there. But today I'm about to tell you that it is deeper than that. I believe that it is more than that. I believe that introspection is a cautious and mindful practice of self-observation or self-reflection, which includes peeling back layers of thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in order for us to understand why we feel or think or even act the way we do. Now, most people would say, but when I introspect, I'm usually looking for criticism. But today I want to say introspection is not for that. Introspection is not for self-criticism or trying to find flaws in your life, but it is more about understanding ourselves on a deeper level, to know ourselves more, especially in this world that is accelerating like no man's business. But then now that I've explained, or rather, yes, I've defined what introspection is, now the next question would be, why is introspection so important? Based on how I've just explained it. And I'm just going to try to give you a short story of why I believe, to me, it is. Years back, I was in grade 4. My friends gave me a name that wasn't bad at all. But this name came with somewhat a standard, and without realizing, my mind ended up giving into the standards that the name came with. And in the midst of that, I technically lost myself. Not that I even knew who I was, but I believe that the act of giving into the name and its standards kind of, made me lose myself in the process, or rather not be as active as I could have been maybe if I didn't get the name. But fast forward to grade 9, I believe that was when I began to be happy with who I am, and I began to embrace my fullest potential. I believe at that time that was what I believed. But when I got to university, it was a different challenge to me to say, you know what, I believe I can do more than I thought I would. Go high school, because high school, I'd say I experienced quite a number of things which to a certain degree made me question to say, who am I? And I believe that without realizing, that was when that process of introspection got into play. But because I wasn't trained, or I didn't have that capacity, if I can call it that, to then introspect in somewhat a right way, I didn't know that I was actually doing it. Until a lot of things happened, not because of the name now, just in life in general. And I didn't necessarily become a rebellious child or anything like that, but when your actions begin to change, I began to change, and my mother picked it up and she kept on asking me, what's wrong? And I was like, you know what? No, there's nothing wrong. And it's not a matter of there wasn't anything wrong. There was something wrong, but I didn't know how to voice it. But it's at the same time, I was like, you know what? What's the use of voicing this when I can just live with it? I've always been that one person who's like, you know what? I'm just gonna live with whatever I'm going through, and with time, it too will pass. But then she decided, you know what? I'm gonna go to therapy. And at the beginning, it's like, therapy? Is my mother really putting me in a position where I have to talk to a stranger and tell a stranger, oh, this is what is happening in my life and I'm not happy with this and this and that, when I'm not comfortable talking to her? But I'm grateful that she took that step, because I believe that if it wasn't of therapy, I wouldn't be where I am today, being content with who I am. And I remember the first session I had with my psychologist. It was so short, it was so light. It was a light conversation where she was just trying to get to know me, because when I say things got bad, it got bad to that extent where marks are just going down. And you know, you get to a point where, to a certain degree, you fall out of love with who you thought you were. And today, my good friends, I'm here because of introspection. And I believe that the importance of it is you get to be continuously self-aware of who you are, and you get to keep up to date with what's happening in your life and any changes that you might be experiencing, right? It assists you to do that, and with emotional healing as well, because I remember when I went there, I only realized, oh, you know what, I've actually kept all these things inside, because some are family related. Hore, damn, I didn't know that these things actually affect a person like this. The minute I began to talk to my psychologist, that's when I was like, oh, so these things are somewhat contributing factors to where I am today. And introspection then assists one with emotional healing. It assists one with personal growth, because I believe that growth in its word, it's also something that people define in different ways, where some people would say growth is actually the completion of a particular task, the completion of a particular goal. For example, let's say you want to reach 100 subscribers. A person would say growth is 100 subscribers, but another person would come and say, actually, growth is not 100 subscribers, reaching 100 subscribers, but it is that process from 0 subscribers to 100. So the in between, the process between, I believe that that's where growth is experienced. And I believe that's why I then started the YouTube channel, to say, you know what, let us go through this journey of life together. And another thing is that the minute you introspect is the minute you make room for changes, which is growth. John Maxwell says something. He says, change is inevitable, but growth is an option. So with me introducing this friend or this weapon to you called introspection, this is me saying, if you're not happy with who you are today, take it from me, from years back. With introspection, you can become the person you want to become. But in the midst of that, you need to make a choice to say, yes, there's change, and change is going to happen either way. But it is up to me, being you, to make this change growth. You understand? So yeah, I went to therapy, and that was when I discovered who I truly was. And in the midst of that, I became content with who I am. Another challenge we might be faced with, especially in this fast life that requires us to be up to date with all the trends and everything that's happening. You know, I mean, social media on its own is just, it's a lot, because it's just a matter of scrolling up and you come across so many videos, so many information, too much information, to an extent that sometimes our minds operate on what we call autopilot, where you do not necessarily have to overthink something, but because your mind is already associated a particular word or a particular idea to a particular event and all that, it makes decisions on its own automatically without us realizing. And I believe that to a certain degree, that's not a healthy way to live life. So introspection then comes into play once again to ensure that we are up to date with who we are, to be content with who we are, because I believe that the minute you are content with who you are is the minute, listen, I believe the world is your oyster. You are unlimited. And this is me being here to say, let us come together and build a community of limitless people, people who are unlimited, people who have, that room to say, I thought this was who I am yesterday, but today I believe I'm a different being. Another thing that self-introspection assists with is it gives us the ability to connect with our inner self. Now, most people would say this is your spiritual being, which is connected to your soul, which then assists us to discover one thing that most people struggle with, being our purpose in life. With our purpose comes our values and beliefs. And I believe that if you can get those in order, change won't be much of a challenge for you, because you know that this is your foundation, being your values, your purpose in life, and your beliefs, right? And you know that even if you change, all the change will be done in such a way that it accommodates these three levels, being your purpose, your beliefs, and your values. Because I believe that it takes more than just any change for one to say, I thought these were my values, they've changed. Unless if you fell into the trap of societal standards where once again your mind was operating on autopilot and you didn't know who you were, but you just fell in love with this idea of, okay, I'm this person because society says this is what maybe a guy should do, or this is what a 20-year-old should do, this is what a 20-year-old shouldn't do. And maybe if then you fell into that trap of, I'm leaving because I have to leave, and here I am finding myself go varsity, not knowing how did I get here, or I find myself in a particular situation without realizing, yo, I was condoning such things in my life, And I believe that then introspection again, yaritusa to connect with ourselves and making room for positive change. Because remember, change can be positive and change can be negative. So introspection assists us with that. And then I believe another question that we would get then is to say, how does one practice introspection? I believe that the best way is, for me, it was going to a psychologist. It was therapy. But for some people, they would say it's journaling. I know a few people who have actually said journaling actually works for them, to journal your day down and, connect with yourself on that level. But sometimes I feel like whenever you introspection ivukisa izinto ezinye empilweni zethu, our demons, they get awoken, especially when you are practicing introspection and you are on your spiritual journey. Our demons are then very activated whenever you introspect, and I believe that that's when people fall into the trap of, instead of doing introspection to be up to date with who I am and become a better person, being self-aware, because I believe that introspection is connecting with yourself on a deeper level and to understand yourself in a compassionate manner, in a compassionate way. Some people fall into the trap of, I'm introspecting because I want to see where I went wrong. And I believe that that mentality also then stems from the idea of failure is negative. And I believe that it's time that we change that. Or failure is not necessarily negative. Failure is not a bad thing. Failure is basically a step to becoming a better version of yourself, or becoming better at a particular situation, at a particular facet of life. And so I'd say journaling or therapy. And now I think it's time that we break the stigma of therapy. People who go to therapy are people who have problems, people who are not mentally stable. Yes, believe me when I say that I was introduced to therapy due to, those situations that were not so pleasant, to one's soul, to one's body, to one's heart, and to one's mind. But I recently went back to therapy. This time not because I have problems or anything, but because I discovered how much I got out of therapy, the benefits of therapy being the benefits of introspection, being up to date with who you are, and um, receiving criticism then from another party that is listening to you to say, this is what I did, this is what I did, and it was due to this and this and that. And then your therapist in this case would then be able to say, I believe that maybe this is where you went wrong, and maybe this is how you can go about it. But it does not end with the therapist, because after that, that's when the journey begins, because you have to make peace with that. And I believe that introspection, then this leads us to another segment of introspection makes room for, or rather it allows us to cultivate a safe space for ourselves, to accept ourselves, which is then self-acceptance. One thing that I believe makes so much difference, especially in a world where stigma is playing quite a role, where stereotype also has so much power. So one's ability to then accept themselves, I believe that that is one power of weapons again that we can use to release our power. I believe that every person's power are then are treasured within their identity. And the best way for one to get to their identity is through self-acceptance, because I believe that identity discovery and self-acceptance, they are both connected to the definition of growth, being it is a process, because I believe that who you were yesterday is not necessarily who you are going to be today, even though your values, beliefs, purpose does not change in life, but how you see life might differ. Maybe I should put it in that manner to say, I believe that the minute you accept yourself for who you are is the minute you are able to embrace change and to live in the present and to live in that process of 0 to 100 subscribers, rather than focusing on I was at 0 and now I'm at 100. I believe that it makes room for that to say, oh, I've actually grown and I'm happy with who I am. Being content with who you are, I believe, is what makes you different, especially in the 21st century. Let us be honest, we are exposed to so many things, like I said. So self-acceptance then makes room for that, and I believe that self-acceptance then also adds to what I've said earlier on, to say it makes it possible for us to take this change and somewhat cultivate it into positive growth. Because remember, like I said, growth can be negative and growth can be positive. And this then also makes it possible for us to introduce a new friend in our lives, a friend that most people hate. I don't know why. I think once again it's because of the stigma, but this friend is called no. Your ability to say no to certain things and to say no to certain people. Now, I believe that the minute you say no to a person and the person cannot respect what you're saying, it means that that person does not respect you for you, but they are in your life because they somewhat have associated themselves to a particular caliber. And I believe that the best version you can become of yourself is getting rid of those people who believe that born getting galagata in your lives, but to be who believe that they're in charge of your life and they can dictate your steps like they want. So yeah, I believe that's introspection for me. And another thing that you can do with introspection is meditation. I've never tried meditation, but I'm actually thinking of trying meditation. Then working out, I believe to a certain degree, it's somewhat linked to it, because then your mind gets to relax, and when your mind is relaxed, you get to think clearly. Gym is one of a all-in-one type of strategy or practice you can then implement in your life to say, I'll gym. And gymming, or rather let me say exercising, is not necessarily limited to heavy lifting and all that. Working out can be taking a walk, or you just getting up zumbanyana in your room, or getting up and dancing, because I believe that dancing, it also then assists to keep your mind, relaxed, because then you are active and you're not necessarily focused on your problems. So if you then are saying, how do I go about then journaling? How do I go about, maybe I cannot afford a psychologist, or the idea of psychology or therapy is just not doing it for me. How do I then go about starting with this journey of introspection? I'm just going to give you 4 basic questions and 1 question that will just make you go poof. It's the first one is, what am I feeling right now and why? You get to write all your feelings down. Then after that, you ask yourself, why am I feeling in that particular way? I believe that then that makes you dig deeper. Number 2, what did I learn from this experience, right? This one from number 1. So you see that it is your type of question that based on your answer in question 1, what is this then? What did you learn from this experience? You might say that I've discovered that maybe when a person increases their volume, for example, I go into defensive mode of some sort to say, a minute when a person increases their voice, I want to maybe match them, or it just makes me go crazy, and we just link to that idea to say, then what have you learned? I've learned that I cannot tolerate people who increase their volumes, and instead of maybe responding immediately, I should just take some time and allow my mind to adjust to what I want it to adjust to, instead of it operating on autopilot. That one is this belief truly mine, or did I inherit it from someone else? Once again, because of social media, because of societal standards, you might believe something that you do not necessarily believe. And the 4th one would then be, how am I growing from this challenge? I believe that the 4th question is not only based on answering, but it then requires you to implement a particular strategy. Because the best way for you to see that you're growing is by implementing that particular idea, that particular strategy plan that you'd say, this is how I'm then going to move on from this. And I believe that those questions are what can assist you to start this journey of introspection. Most importantly, do not be too hard on yourself. Remember that we're here for each other. And my last question then would then be, who do I think I am? So ask yourself this question before you start with the 4 questions, and then ask yourself the very same question after the 4 questions, and look at the answers to that same question prior and post the 4 questions. So the one thing that I'd want you to take from this conversation is, in the midst of these hectic days that we're having, the traffic in our lives, just take a second, just take a moment and pause and ask yourself, what am I learning from this? How am I feeling? Is this truly what I would do, or am I doing it because of the people I'm around? Right? And yeah, beautiful souls, we've come to the end of today's conversation. If you truly enjoyed today's conversation, please go ahead and click that subscribe button. If you haven't joined the group, go and follow us on our social media platforms, and share with a friend and tell a friend to share with a friend, because we're here to build a community that is gonna make us unlimited, and I believe that you'd not want to be unlimited alone. Click that like button and catch you guys next time. Remember, it is one juicy conversation at a time. Stay blessed and God bless.